И iHeartRadio по всей Америке. Радио RUSA. Made in the USA.
Здравствуйте всем, меня зовут Аня Пекерман, и хотела сегодня особо попросить Рэба Фридмана поучаствовать с нами на радио, который уже официально стал духовным лидером нашей радиостанции, наверное, уже нашей общины, потому что то, что сейчас происходит в мире, даже не то, что происходит, а реакция на то, что происходит, хотелось бы получить такой духовный подход и объяснение всему, что происходит, и никто этого не делает лучше, чем сам Рэба Фридман, великий Рэба Фридман. Rabbi Menace Friedman, it's a great honor for us to have you on RUSA Radio. Once again, we can say officially now that you became the spiritual leader of our radio and of our community, and we always value your wisdom, your advice. And right now, it's very much needed to understand what is going on in the world, and not so much we understand what happened. What happened was horrible. I'm talking about right now the situation with George Floyd. What happened? It's inhuman. It's disgusting. It should never have happened. It's murder. It's awful, and nobody is arguing with that. And the whole point is that no one is arguing with it anywhere. Yet there are riots, looting, aggression. Why is that all happening?
That's a very big question. Why is it happening? I have no idea. But what is happening? At least that we should be able to understand. What is happening is that the line between right and wrong, between good and evil, between holy and unholy, is becoming very clear. All the confusion is being taken out of the picture. Good is good, bad is bad. See, I think if this had happened a year ago, 10 years ago, there would be so much confusion. There would be so much justification for the violence and for the rioting and for the looting. Today, there's no justification. Nobody's even trying to justify it. I just saw a clip of a group of people who wanted to enter a store that sold gold. The owners were standing there with rifles, and the gang or the crowd just couldn't understand. Let us into the store. Between holy and unholy. It was, we want to take the gold. Why are you stopping us? No attempt at justification. The evil is pure. And when evil stops hiding behind goodness, it's committing suicide. Harry Carey. Literally, it is jumping off a cliff. So the evil is now coming out in its full glory, which means it doesn't have much longer to live. This is a necessary healing of the world, because the mixture that in every good there is some evil, and in every evil there is some good, that is a very unhealthy mixture. So for the world to become healthy, it's got to be sorted out. And that's what is happening. It's painful to watch, but it is hopeful. Because the more the evil comes out, the shorter its life. On the positive side, the goodness that's going to come out is also going to be pretty awesome. Because when good is pure good, it's very good. So this is what's happening in front of our eyes.
Rabbi Friedman, who's going to decide what's good and what's not good? Because the people who are writing, I'm sure they're certain that what they're doing is very good. They're standing for the rights of people who are oppressed. So who's going to be deciding what's good, what's not?
See, that would have been the people's reaction or confusion a year ago. It's not happening. Everybody recognizes bad is bad. And if we need to explain it, then we're still in trouble. If we need to point out this is bad, this is not, no, then we're still in trouble. It's got to be so clear that there's no denying it and there's no missing it. If people can still miss it, we're not there yet. The good news is nobody is really trying to justify their behavior, and nobody is confused about this poor guy. There's a clip online, an older man in the neighborhood whose truck was burned, whose business was destroyed, and he's running down the street shouting at his neighbors, "Why are you doing this to me?" It's so clear. It's so clear. It's pure destruction. There's no question that it's organized. It's intentional all over the country. It's planned, and its purpose is pure evil. It's not going to win.
It seems like people are becoming a lot more vocal about their thoughts and positions than they have ever been before in their entire life. It's on social media, everybody is expressing their point of view to the fullest, not holding back anymore, not worried.
So until now, the phenomenon of everyone having a voice because they can go online and abuse us with their opinions and with their thoughts, which is, better if they kept it to themselves. So, the average guy who's frustrated and sitting there on his computer, their opinion really didn't make much of a difference. But the people in charge, the people in high office, their evil or their good is now going to be visible, unconcealed, not thinly disguised, not disguised at all. And when that happens, the world becomes good. So it's painful to watch, but don't be confused. The world is getting better.
Rabbi Friedman, you've been saying it all along. This is actually something that you've been saying on the radio for maybe almost 2 months already. We heard it from you first. And in a way, you said, don't worry, this is going to be happening. And this is something that is going to heal the world, not destroy it. You seem to know this. Is this going to be a long process?
I think, we have to assume that as long as the world is not yet perfect, we're all obligated to do something to add to the goodness of the world. But with a little urgency, because you don't know how long it's going to take. It may be over. The world may be perfect in 2 weeks from now, and you haven't done your share yet. And then it'll be too late. You'll just be a spectator. You'll be there when the good news happens, but you won't feel like you contributed. That would be sad. Everybody should feel like they contributed, which in truth, of course, everybody contributed. Even if you did it unknowingly, unconsciously. Every good thing you do, even every hopeful, positive, optimistic thought brings goodness into the world. But if you know, you consciously decided to do something knowing that you want to contribute to the perfecting of the world, you will have much more pleasure when it happens. You'll feel much more comfortable because, what we get for free is a little embarrassing. So you will get for free. You will be there when the world becomes perfect, and you will benefit, and you will have all the pleasure of a perfected world, but you won't have the pleasure of feeling that you were an active participant, consciously. So now the thinking is, what last good deed, final good deed, can I add to the historic collection of goodness that we have invested in the world? And we shouldn't be apologetic or shy about it. The Jewish people have produced and introduced more goodness into this world than we can even imagine, Because, with all the challenges, despite all of our handicaps, we never allowed negativity, defeat, darkness, evil, never allowed it to win. We paid a big price. Blood and tears, but we never let it win. So every Jew that ever suffered and kept thinking optimistic and positive, that is such a powerful sweetening of the darkness or the bitterness. Nobody will know. It's not public. It won't be written in the papers. But it doesn't change the fact. Every positive thought in the face of darkness took a bite out of the darkness. And over the years, the darkness has been weakened to such a degree, it can't hide anymore. And when it is that exposed, it is committing suicide.
That's great news. So the message is to be positive, to be kind, to be optimistic. Is that the contribution of today's world from everybody?
Yeah. The threat of today. In the olden days, the threat was you're going to go to hell, you'll burn in hell, you'll be struck by lightning, you'll get a disease. Those were the threats. The threat today is, I'm warning you, the world's going to be perfect by next week. That's the threat. So, get busy.
Rabbi Friedman, I still have to ask, maybe it's not even relevant, but it's still hurtful. I mean, we haven't, as a Jewish community, as Jewish people, we haven't even been there for the start of the rioting. We were busy celebrating Shavuot for the Thursday, for the Friday and the Saturday. And then we come out and there's anti-Semitic signs everywhere. We weren't even there for the period of time. What happened? Why? Why do we always have to be a part of this darkness?
In every question, the answer is just beneath the surface. The question carries its answer. If Jews were not mentioned, then the darkness would be just darkness. when Jews are mentioned, now you have the darkness and its antidote. Yes, we're mentioned negatively, but the world is so conscious of Jews all the time. Like even when you can be busy stealing a television, you can't forget to mention the Jews. No matter what passion you're in, you gotta mention the Jews. Why? Because that's the answer. Once the darkness is over, who's going to set the tone? Who are going to be the teachers when the world settles down and wants to be good? They won't let you forget. It's the Jews. So in a dark, twisted way, we should see it as a compliment. Haven't you got your own problems? You have to keep bringing up the Jews. There are no other problems in the world other than the Jews. The answer is hiding in plain sight. We're the answer.
Are we ready for it?
Oh, we've been ready for this for 4,000 years. We'll be a little embarrassed. Got to admit that. You know, people will look to us as the light to the world, and we know we are got our own problems. We know how imperfect we are. But it's not going to be about us personally. Nobody's going to come and ask you how moral you were, how good you were, how kind you were, how holy you were. They're going to ask you, what do you know about God? I don't want your opinion. I want the truth. And somehow the Jews maintained the truth. What is the truth? What did God say at Mount Sinai? Why does anybody care? The event at Mount Sinai is the only instance in all of history where God made himself known. And the practical, important part of making himself known is telling us the purpose for which he created us. And we need to know that. We desperately need to know that, especially when the evil is over. Okay, we're calm now. We got no distractions. Nothing hurts. Nothing is scaring me. Now, why am I here? It's like when a teacher finally gets his class to settle down and everybody's in their seats, everybody is now quiet. This teacher now has the attention of the class, but he has no idea what he's teaching. Now what do? The class is settling down. And by next week or 2 weeks, the class is going to be sitting there saying, yeah, so why are we here? We know why we're here, even if we ourselves did not live up to it perfectly. So call me hypocrite. But you want to know what's true or not? If you want to know, listen up. We'll tell you. And listen humbly, because we could have told you this 1,000 years ago if you would just stop shooting at us.
Rabbi Friedman, but not all of us know either. Some of us do.
It's surprising. You know, I made this video back in Minnesota called Patterns of Evidence. I spoke to that. This religious non-Jew believer, sincere believer, decided to pursue the evidence for the stories in the Torah. The slavery in Egypt, the 10 plagues, the splitting of the sea, the giving of the Torah, Mount Sinai, fantastic. And he interviewed many people. You make a documentary, you got to interview people. So he's interviewing these political leaders and so on, and he's asking them religious questions. Like he interviewed Shimon Peres, and he's asking him about God's miracles and whether the return to Israel is miraculous, God had anything to do with it, and he's so uncomfortable, Shimon. So I said, "Oh, that's not fair. You're asking, he's a lifelong politician, a diplomat that he's good at. You're asking him questions that are really not his field, and making him very uncomfortable." And this guy said, "No, I discovered something about Jews. Point the camera at them and have them talk for more than 5 minutes, and all the goodness comes out." We surprise ourselves because it's right under the surface. And in front of a camera, something happens, like it all comes out. So at first, this is not in the film, but in the raw footage. At first, he asks him, "So did God have anything to do with the miracle of the return to Israel?" And he said, "What do you mean by God?" 5 minutes later, it's like, without the 10 Commandments, there would be no morality. Like all of a sudden, I was just talking like a rabbi. It only took 5 minutes. So what is this? What do you mean by God? That's just the superficial dust that has settled on a Jewish soul. You blow at it, they blow it away, the dust is gone, and all of a sudden, what? He doesn't know. He doesn't know Jewish history. He doesn't know what we've been through. He doesn't know why his father stayed Jewish and why his mother lit Shabbos candles. Come on. We know. We don't give ourselves enough credit.
And the world is ready to accept all of that.
The world is desperate. No, not because of the evil. The world will be more desperate when the evil is over. Because as long as we're fighting the evil, we're a little distracted. But once the evil is over, like I said, the classroom is finally settled. They're all in their proper seats. They've all got their books open. Now what? Now you panic. Now you better have answers. You better get answers. So, people always complain about, what do I do with my child? He doesn't listen. He's destructive. He fights with his... You wish that was your problem. You're so happy that that's your problem that you can come to the child psychologist and say, my child has issues. You know how much scarier it would be if your child had no issues? If he just looked at you across the table at dinner time and said, why am I here? Isn't that more scary? What is life all about?
Rabbi Friedman, what is the advice? What should people be doing right now? It seems like we're really, really close. There is no turning back. We can all see that. But what should people be doing? Jewish people, not Jewish people, just people. What is your advice for everybody?
The only thing left to do is to ask ourselves, my needs have become so petty, so embarrassing, and so undoable Like it's whatever you want to do today, you can't. Either because of the virus, or because of the riots, or because of the curfews, or because of the you can't. You got to give it up. I can't be thinking of what I need. It just doesn't make sense. It's out of place. The only thing that makes sense is, what can I do for somebody else? And how depressing and scary would it be? And this is hypothetical. If you would look around carefully and come to the conclusion that nobody needs you for anything, that would be dangerously depressing. Which proves that the essence of our existence lies in our contribution that we can make to the world, to the people around us, to the Creator. Without that contribution, we would be seriously uncomfortable with our own lives. Because I remember one student in Beischana, the women's program, in the early years, so this must be the early 70s, she was a severely depressed girl. She wasn't Jewish. She was in the process of converting, but very depressed. Also turned out that she was an excellent writer. Stunning. And she wrote me this long letter in which she referred to herself as the pain of my own transparency or invisibility. She felt that she was invisible. People looked at her and did not see her, which means she didn't feel necessary. She was so articulate about it. Beautiful, beautiful. More insightful than most therapists. That was way, way back in the early 70s. I think that was the first indication in my education, my discovery of what's going on in the world, that the need to be needed is the ultimate definition of a human being. We don't need to be pleasured. We don't need to be rich. We don't need to be powerful. We don't need to be loved. But we cannot exist feeling invisible. But that's not because we want recognition. The ego does not rule our existence. It interferes. It complicates things. But we don't live for our egos. We don't want applause. We don't want medals. I mean, we do, but that's not necessary. What we really want is to know, like people are now saying about those who pass away, that their death should not be in vain. This is frightening. Their death should not be in vain. Everybody agrees. That would be a tragedy. Not the death. The meaninglessness of the death. That would be horrible. To die in vain? Wow. How come we don't say the same thing about life? That a life should not be lived in vain. That's worse. So, to live in vain that goes against the very essence of the human psyche. To live in pain, not nearly as bad. I mean, history has shown this. Jewish history for sure. We have lived in pain, and we lived well. We did not live in vain.
Rabbi Friedman, I know this is, a lot of people are talking about this, especially recently, now that the good and evil is separating and becoming very apparent, about the conspiracy theories that exist. How real are they, in your opinion? How should we be paying attention to any of that right now?
I don't think we need to figure it out. We don't need detectives. We don't need spies. Just watch. The conspiracies that are real are going to expose themselves. Those that are not real, they're not real. We don't need to be very insightful when things are making themselves so clear. Just watch. Like I say, the evil doesn't need to be destroyed. It's committing suicide. Like communism. That was the first sign of the end of evil. Not that it was destroyed, but that it committed suicide. It destroyed itself. That is good news, and now it's happening everywhere.
So you're saying we don't need to concentrate on that. We don't need to think about it. We just need to think on the positive, the optimistic, and just wait. And as you're saying, just a little while longer.
Yeah, just watch. The unfolding of Moshiach is a visible thing. They asked the Alter Rebbe back in 1810, just before the war. How are we going to know that Mashiach came? This is 200 years ago. And the Alter Rebbe said, it'll be in the Gazetten. It's not going to be a mysterious spiritual awakening. It's going to be in the newspapers. So it'll be visible. Like it's even in the newspaper. The last place you think you're going to find the truth. Even the newspapers will know because it'll be visible.
Rabbi Friedman, however, there are a lot of spiritual leaders out there today that are concentrating very hard on the conspiracy theories and on everything. And they're Jewish, and they're going to be the teachers as well in a little while. Are they qualified?
Yeah, and as human nature is, they're going to deny ever saying anything else. Oh, I never said that. See, that's one of the things about when does the universe become honest? And the beginning of honesty is the ability to say, I was wrong. Like the newspapers in Israel, the liberal left. For 2 years, they've been saying Netanyahu is finished, his reign is finished, we're post-Netanyahu now. Can you admit you were wrong? Even one writer, one newspaper, anybody get up and say, that was wishful thinking. We were wrong. No, not a single apology. Now, that's just the first step. The first step to honesty is, I was wrong. That takes courage. The second step is much more difficult. And the second step is you were right. That is much harder to say than I was wrong. Oh yeah, I was wrong. Yeah, we misunderstood. But to say you were right, that takes more guts than. Yeah, we were all wrong, but nobody knew what was going on. It's a lot easier to say than to say, I think you were right. I was wrong and you were right. So when people start saying that, we'll know that we've come around. We've turned the corner. So the first step is people who know about other people's evil are going to start coming to the witness stands everywhere. Everyone is going to be spilling the beans, the secrets. It's going to come. But that's people telling about other people's dark side. Then the next step will be that people will tell their own dark side. I was wrong. I contributed to the problem. I was part of the problem. I made things worse. Maybe I didn't mean to, but I did. So, all the writers and all the opinions and all that have contributed to messing up the world, because it all begins in the head. People who created panics with wild predictions of doom and disaster. You got to apologize for those things. You didn't make things better. And then finally, the arrival of Mashiach, where people will say, oh, you're right. Mashiach will come and people will say, yes, that's right. He's right. Man's right.
That sounds so good. And hopefully it is right around the corner. And
But once it starts, like even in Germany, once Hitler was defeated, everybody was, oh yeah, he was terrible. Oh. Once the structure is undermined and the foundation is pulled out, it can't last long. Everything comes out. You have to assume everybody has enemies, right? So every bad person, every bad leader, every corrupt individual, there are 100 people just waiting, hoping to be able to expose him. As soon as it's okay to expose, it's all going to come out. That's the way it is. It's going to be ugly, but it's going to be over. It's like lancing a boil. It can be pretty ugly, but it's such a healing.
Rabbi Friedman, we're so lucky, so blessed to have you come on like this and give us this insights. I'm glad we had a show right before Shavuos, so people understand that this is not magic, heebie-jeebie, or anything like that. It's just your ability to channel certain your soul to the point where you have this information. And so far, for the record, you haven't been wrong. Everything you were saying since January about how things are going to be evolving is exactly how they have been. And I am so grateful to you for sharing this wisdom, this connection that you have with Hashem, with God, that you're able to relate to us on the airways and really give us some comfort about what's going on and help us be better during all of this. Thank you so much.
It's not predictions.
Of course not.
I'm not ahead of events. It's current events. This is what is happening. But, so much stuff is happening and there's so much noise, you can get distracted. So without getting distracted, just watch. It's right there. Hopefully it'll be quick. Hopefully we will all have contributed and be able to stand proudly. So it's not to live to be Mashiach, but to greet Mashiach. How do you greet Mashiach if you didn't do anything? You won't. You'll be hiding in the back. So we should all have the pleasure of greeting Mashiach proudly.
Amen. Thank you so much, Rabbi Friedman, for this amazing sound advice. And hopefully we will all be able to greet Mashiach properly, as you have just said.
All due humility.
I'm sorry?
With all due humility, but with a little sense of accomplishment.
Amen. Amen. God willing. Thank you so much. And thank you for your wisdom. And for anybody out there who wants to have more wisdom from Rabbi Menace Friedman, I strongly suggest a YouTube channel, Menace Friedman, or it's goodtoknow.org. Also very insightful. And I thank you for giving us this wisdom practically on a daily basis. It's very important, very useful. And again, thank you so much for being a part of our community and our radio.
My pleasure. Bye.
Go,